I was always intrigued by the hand balancing world, but I never really practiced the one-arm handstand before, until I saw this video on YouTube from Matthew Smith. I did few attempts, but it seemed so challenging for me, so I decided to buy the handstand and mobility toolkit from Matthew Smith. He is a coach to Olympians and world champions in a variety of different sports. He taught many people the one-arm handstand, hundreds of people from 0 to 15 seconds handstands, and over 50 people to 1-minute handstands. I had the pleasure to meet Matthew when I was in Bali, and so I asked him for some tips in real life, and I invited him in my channel for this video.
The one-arm handstand I like to describe as being 10 times harder than a two-arm handstand.
Okay.
If you think about how long it took you to learn to two-arm handstand, this is kind of the commitment that it's going to be looking at for the one-arm handstand. It's a long journey. However, we can make that journey more friendly by getting our two-arm handstand really solid in the pieces that will transfer over to the one-arm handstand. What we need to do is look at this skill of the one-arm handstand and break it apart into those pieces that when we put them together, create that skill. The first thing I want to explain is we're going to look at something which is underbalance, which you'll be very familiar with. Basically, in a two-arm handstand, you're going to be falling over in overbalance or under in underbalance. When we take one hand away, so now I'm on a one-arm handstand, we can fall in any direction. So we're no longer just falling in overbalance and underbalance. We can now fall side to side and any little diagonal in between, hence the 10 times harder. So what we want to do is make our over and underbalance really solid, like super good on two arms, so that when we're learning the one-arm handstand, we don't have to worry about falling over and under so much. We just have to learn this kind of side to side bit. To do this, we want to learn how to be able to shift our weight further down and save it with our shoulders. And this is going to be a straddle press. And so one of the prerequisites for a one-arm handstand for me is to be able to straddle press the handstand.
Okay.
The reason being, it's not that you need the strength to straddle press on one arm, it's not going to happen. But if you've got the strength on two arms to be able to do this, it means when we take one away, you have the strength to be able to do a little bit on one arm, because you're going to need to. You're going to be up here, you're going to start to fall this way, and you need to going to be able to have to scoop it a little bit to get it back up.
Okay.
So the first thing we're going to do is quickly look at straddle press.
Okay, so how far should my hands be, like shoulder width?
Good question. This depends on your shoulder flexibility. Somewhere around shoulder width or a bit wider. So if you're someone who's on the tighter side for your shoulder flexibility, then going a little bit wider is okay. And the same thing will happen in the one-arm position. You'll notice in a lot of breakdancers, one-arm handstand styles, they're very kind of flagged to the side.
Yeah.
And that's because it means you can kind of have a more open shoulder position. So going wider in the press doesn't matter for the sake of one-arm handstand later.
Oh shit.
Nice.
Oh shit.
And this is with no warm-up, so. So if we look at the straddle press and break this down, one little trick we can do is if you start with your feet narrower.
Okay.
So if you start wide, I have to lean really far forwards immediately. If I'm closer in, I get this little trick where I can kind of boost myself up, get myself really tall, hips over hands, sooner by having my feet together. And then from here, I can split to the straddle. And the trick is you stop here. This is actually, it's over, because this is just a shape change.
Okay.
So the straddle press actually finishes here. Hey! Yeah, so much easier.
Oh.
Nice. You see the difference that moving the feet closer together makes?
Yeah.
Because now, if we film it from the side as well, I'll show you here. If I go wide with my legs and I try and straddle press, I have to lean really far forwards to be able to begin to lift. If I bring my feet in together, my hips are now over my hands much sooner, and so I don't have to lean as far forward, and so it's much easier to lift.
Yeah.
So what this is doing, it seems like, what's this got to do with a one-arm handstand? Basically, my feet are on this side of my body. I am fundamentally in underbalance, and so I have to shift over this way. I have to bring my weight over, so my center of mass is in my hand, to be able to lift. The shoulders are having to do this, they're having to fight, be strong. And this action is going to happen in the one-arm handstand. Every time we fall on this side of the hand, the shoulder has to do this. And so if you're really strong on two arms here, to be able to lift this well, then doing the smaller movement on one arm becomes much more
Ah.
So that's prerequisite number 1, getting the straddle press pretty solid. Prerequisite number 2 is, again, it's going to be like, why has this got anything to do with a one-arm handstand? It's head looking at toes. So if I'm in a handstand, bring my head through to look at my toes. So the reason this is relevant is in a one-arm handstand, the weight is going to be moving in my hand all over the place. So in a two-arm handstand, the weight drifts this way and I push to bring myself back, or it might drift this way, and then we just talked about saving this direction. So the weight only travels this kind of up and down, kind of slowly, when you're good at two-arm handstands. In a one-arm, it doesn't just go up and down. You'll feel the weight in your hand going all over the place, and so you're saving like every direction. What this means is we want to be able to feel the balance in our hand. And so if we're relying on our eyesight to kind of lock where we are, you're not really truly learning how to just use the kind of feeling part of it.
Okay.
And so by bringing the head through, you can't rely on the eyesight. And the first time you try this, for some people, they'll be surprised that, oh my God, like it feels totally different. And so we want to learn what it's like to use that part.
Yeah, should I try?
Yeah, let's do it. So handstand, and then you're gonna bring your head through, and then we'll give some tips.
Shit. Oh.
Yeah, this is really difficult. Super humbling.
Should I do it slow or fast?
Smooth. So it's like one smooth motion tends to be the easiest. Your t-shirt's also making it harder by getting in the way.
And how much should I tuck my head?
So the goal is actually to bring it through. I'll show you one in a minute.
All the way.
To look at the feet.
It's tough.
The way to do this is my head's on this side of my body. And so I want to preload my weight slightly into the fingers, and then I can shift this way, and that weight of like, your head's a few kilos, but that shift will then bring you back. So we can deliberately put our weight into the fingers, then do the head motion, and it'll put us back to where our balance was just before.
Yeah.
So I'll show you. This is when it goes completely wrong. So I'm going to load the fingers, and then the head's through.
Oh.
So I'm in the handstand. My weight is, let's say, here. I deliberately shift it a little bit further, so now my fingers are pressing a bit harder to keep me, and then the head comes through. And what the head coming through will do is actually shift me back to here.
Yeah.
So it feels really weird because it feels like I'm about to fall over, and then you bring the head through, and then suddenly you're in balance again. Yeah.
I feel like I'm arching backwards with my legs a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So one thing we've noticed is in all 3 attempts, you've actually fallen over and over balance. So in this case, you're kind of breaking the rule of preloading the fingers. And so for you, actually forget that cue and just from your normal balance, bring your head through and see what happens. Instead of falling over, we want to break it down so that sometimes you fall under.
Okay, yeah.
Something that also makes head looking at toes much harder here is there's no ceiling.
Oh, really?
So when the head comes through, you end up just looking at the sky.
Yeah,
It's really disorientating. When you do it indoors and there's like a roof where you can see something like a beam or something to look at, it's much easier because you get that kind of point to lock onto. But again, the goal of this is we want to be able to feel the weight in the hands. And at the moment, you're struggling with the transition is one stage of this. And then the second part is when you're actually in the position, can you still balance without having the eyesight to help?
Yeah.
So that time you piked your legs before going through.
Yeah, because I was always falling and I felt like arching my legs, so I tried to do a little bit the opposite.
Sure. Yeah, that's one yet.
Oh.
It's still over. This is head looking at toes. It's humbling, as you can see.
Yeah.
And the 2 things we've looked at so far are both difficult skills, like the straddle press and the head looking at toes. And one of them is, to recap, strengthening that when we fall this way. Another one is, can we really feel the balance in the one hand? And then the next prerequisite is going to start looking at the weight shifting. So how do we get from our weight being in the middle of 2 hands and then shifting our weight over to one hand so that we can actually enter the one-arm handstand. But before we do that, we can practice these weight shifts and how good we are at side bending, getting into the right position in a two-arm handstand, ready for the one-arm handstand. So the goal is in the handstand, I'll face this way. Let's say your flexibility allows you to come this far apart. What I want you to be able to learn is how to side bend enough so that this bottom leg can go below horizontal.
Okay.
So that we want to build the strength so that you can tip and get this leg to go below the line. The more flexible you are, the easier this prerequisite is going to be, and the easier the one-arm handstand is going to be. Because the legs together one-arm handstand is about 3 times harder than a wide straddle one-arm handstand. I've asked lots of different hand balancers, and it seems to be whatever their max hold is here is 3 times longer than their max hold here. So if they've got 10 seconds full, 30 seconds straddle, thereabouts. The only exceptions I found are people who are not flexible enough to get this far. And the other one is people that just train full and never straddle. Their straddle there's not a big of a difference, but there still is a difference. Straddle is easier.
Yeah.
Why? Because the center of mass is so much lower down, so it's easier to hold.
Okay, yeah. When I open the legs, should I keep them like this, or can they be a little forward?
They can be a little forward.
Kind of like a pancake a little bit.
Yep. So your level of flexibility is going to change how much you can do that. If you're not very flexible and you fold forwards, you end up in this kind of like really extended position. But if you're more flexible, then it's not so far away from your body.
Okay.
So again, the more flexible you are, the more you can drop down like a pancake.
Now I'm gonna try, but if I practice by myself, should I first master just looking at my toes?
So all 3 of these pieces we're looking at, I think they're training separate things. So you can actually train the different pieces as part of your overall program.
Okay.
So it's not like you have to get head looking at toes before you can move on to this.
Okay.
You might decide, I'm just going to focus on the one and get it really, really good. And do a few weeks of head looking at toes, which is normally what I recommend. But you can do a bit of this, bit of that, bit of the other one, because they train different things.
Okay, perfect.
So, from a straddle handstand, you can be in the open position or you can be in the pike position. It's up to you. I'm going to shift my weight just a little bit to get my leg below horizontal. You don't have to go super low. You just need to come a little bit. Back to center. For now, we might just do one at a time, or you can then come and do the other side and come back. What I'm doing, notice I'm side bending at the moment. Later when you're doing the one-arm handstand, we'll take this bit away, but for now, when you're training this, it's okay.
Okay.
What I don't want is your shoulders to be like moving.
So shoulders exactly like a normal handstand, just moving the hips and the legs.
Mostly. Shoulders can move a little bit, but not like...
Okay.
Nice. Cool.
Ooh, so tiring.
It's hard, it's heavy. One of the things that's happening as you shift over to one side is your elbow is beginning to bend.
Yeah, I noticed that, yeah.
And so what I want you to learn in this is trying to keep this more extended.
Okay.
Now you can one-arm handstand with the elbow super bent. It is possible. It's just much heavier. And so if you want it to be efficient, the more you can stay underneath yourself, the easier it's going to be. Versus if your shoulder comes away, then you end up in this very powery position. You see it a lot in breakdancing though. That's how people learn it, and it can work.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's wrong, it's just heavier. So this is going to need more power. This position is more precise. I'm not an expert in breakdancing, but if you're going to enter it dynamically, this gives you much more room to catch it and save it, I think.
Okay.
But if you want to be very precise and do different shape changes with your legs, I think being closer is going to make it much easier. So there's like a trade-off between the two. They have their advantages and disadvantages. In circus, you'll see much more close position, and in breakdance, you'll see more.
Yeah.
there's an example of that falling and underbalance. That's where the strength of being able to press would help you save that, push it.
I feel like the lower I go, the more strength I need to use.
Yeah, and so if I do like a really low one-arm handstand shape, you'll also see how it becomes easier by moving the shoulder out. Because it's easier to get the weight further over, because I don't have to shift my center of mass so far to get under the hand. I can be like here, or here. This kind of thing where I'm low down, it's hard with the arms straight, and it's much easier when I bend it like that. Again, because you're trying to flag so low, it's easier to then just have this little bit of a powery bend to it.
Yeah.
So when you come to this side, your alignment's really, really good. You don't twist.
On the right.
Yeah, and then on your left, you twist a little bit. And so if you were to film this sideways, you would be able to see the position you're entering on each side. And this side is coming down very nicely. And then this side is swinging out a little bit. The thing with twists is you don't have to be in this like perfectly side position without any kind of twist. As long as if you twist it a little bit, it stops twisting. Then you can hold the one-arm handstand. If the twist is excessive, it makes it much harder. And so there is a reason to kind of train it and keep it in place. But I think some people become obsessed with making sure it's absolutely perfect.
Okay.
But if you twist it a little bit, but you stop and you're stable, then it can work. And I know lots of hand balancers who have a slight twist, and it's okay.
Yeah.
One trick, this comes later, this is when you've really got these prerequisites down and you're like properly going for the one-arm handstand, but this twist becomes a problem. If you're always twisting the same way out, and you find out by filming it, you can actually practice by deliberately falling the wrong way. So you can deliberately twist the other way, and what that will do is it will teach you what it feels like to move one way and what it feels like to move the other. What this means is you'll feel, oh, I'm starting to twist, and you'll know what to do in order to pull it back into position, and then you can learn to deal with this twist. And again, I said the one-arm handstand's like 10 times harder than the two-arm handstand. Not only can you fall in all these different directions, but you also twist. And that doesn't happen on two arms because this other arm fixes you.
Yeah.
And so when we go through the progressions of going to one-arm handstand, just having one finger on the floor, just like this, stops the twisting.
Okay.
And so going from here to here is really, really hard because now you start to spin
okay.
out like this too.
Sounds very hard.
It's fun. You have to be insane to want to do it because it's just the same thing again and again. But then it like starts to click, and that's the joy of it.
How long did it took for you to learn?
It took me a while to learn a two-arm handstand.
Okay.
So it took me well over a year for the normal two-arm handstand.
Okay.
And then going from a really good two-arm handstand to a one-arm handstand, I got 8 seconds in 8 weeks, which was very fast. And during that time period, I met up with over a dozen different hand balancers. I basically traveled Europe, meeting up with everyone I could find.
Okay, I saw it in the video, yeah.
So when I was learning the one-arm handstand, that was the only thing I was doing. I was going to different people, training every day, multiple times a day, just trying to get this skill. It was much quicker in that sense.
Should I try something else?
So in your normal practice, I would say focus on those for now, and then we can start building. But for the sake of this video, we can look at what the next steps might be and begin to play with that.
Okay.
And we'll do this as like a final piece of how do we actually start moving and start putting all these pieces together and actually go to the one-arm handstand.
Good.
There's two main ways of entering the one-arm handstand. I'm going to show this on my feet. I'm going to side bend over to shift my center of mass of my hand, and then I can lift and push out to the one-arm handstand. Or instead of side bending and pushing and lifting, I can just transition the whole structure over and keep it relatively straight. Those are the two main ways in. I've seen people have great success with both types. I don't think one is better than the other. I think it depends on personal preference. So we have shifting over, and then I'm gonna lift into this fingertip position. And I want it to be light. I don't want to be like putting loads of weight in these fingers so that I'm like here where I'm in a two arm. And like using this for load, that's not gonna work.
Okay.
So that position I had at the end, I'll show you another one where it's bad. This here, this will never lead to a one arm handstand.
Okay.
We would normally do more work on the prerequisite, but this is what the next step begins to look like.
I should check the videos because I don't know how much I'm shifting the weight. Like when I do some breakdance moves, I know how they look like because I already filmed them so many times. I already feel my body what it's doing, but since this is a new movement, I cannot see myself.
I know, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Like with one arm handstand, filming yourself is one of the most useful teachers and tools out there. And one of my favorite things to do, I think this will also help in a lot of breakdancing moves because I use it in acrobatics as well. And that is to film yourself, but you don't watch the video. What you do is you think what went wrong and you really try and visualize and imagine what position was I in, what mistake happened, why did it not work? And then you watch the video because what you get is this reality check of you really think through, okay, this is what I think it is, and then you find out what actually happened. And so normally when you first do this, there'll be a disconnect. At least for me and a lot of my students, what they thought happened isn't actually what happened. And then you learn, so that feeling is actually this. And then you bridge the gap between what you think is happening and what is actually happening. That's how you can make the corrections fast enough to save the one-arm handstand. Is when something's going wrong, you then know what the save is, versus if you've never done this check, you're just guessing and you don't really know.
Should I try one more time?
Yeah, let's do it. Take your time. The last one was a little bit rushed.
Should I try on the left maybe, or should I try always the same side?
Do both. That was the right idea. It was just a bit fast and you lost balance. But
yeah, on the left I feel worse. It's so weird because I hop on the left hand, but the position is way different in hand-ups because the basic hand-up position is this one here. So I'm a little bit more turned and wider. I'm not like this, but I feel more like this. I feel like if I wanna move the weight to the left, I wanna also open. I wanna do this because I'm used to this position for the hand-ups. But on the right, since my hand-ups are worse, maybe I don't have this kind of idea of opening.
makes sense.
Do you think in my specific case, since I can do hand-ups, does it make sense to practice hand-ups and just stopping? Or maybe doing slower hand-ups instead of doing hand-ups like this, kind of doing one, and trying to learn the one arm handstand in this way?
It's a good question. I don't know because I've never experimented with doing that, so I can't say for sure. In theory, it could work.
Maybe I can try both things. Maybe on the right side I will practice in the normal way, and on the left side I'm gonna practice in the hand-up way and see what happens.
I love it. Do it.
It'll
That'd
be
be
fun.
such a cool experiment.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any more steps?
There are more steps from fingertips all the way
Okay.
to one-arm handstand, but I think this here, what we've looked at, is the core of getting it from a two-arm handstand ready for the one-arm handstand. I think too many people jump in, they kind of get like an okay two-arm handstand. Immediately it's like, right, let's go for one arm. But I think you do yourself a disservice and make the journey much longer, more frustrating than it needs to be. It's a long journey, it's a frustrating journey anyway, so let's make it as easy as possible. So really getting these pieces in first sets you up so that your foundation is there. You have these different pieces that will then make that journey much easier.
Makes totally sense. In breakdance it's exactly the same. Many people want to practice air flares and flares without having all the prerequisites, and they take much longer time to learn them.
Exactly. The only other prerequisite to put in is the wider your side split is, the easier the one-arm handstand is going to be at all stages. Because when you're doing this straddle position, it's going to just make you have, so your center of mass can be so much lower that the balance is just so much easier. It's like doing a one-arm balance like a croc on the floor. For those that don't know, this is a croc, and this is a joke to hold in comparison to a one-arm handstand. because it's so low to the ground, the
Yeah.
center of mass is so low.
Yeah.
We can do the same thing. The wider the straddle, the lower the center of mass.
I really hope this video was useful for you. I will leave Matthew links in the description. You can find his Instagram, but also his One Arm Handstand toolkit and his mobility and flexibility toolkit. It's very detailed, so if you're serious about learning the One Arm Handstand or improve your mobility, I really recommend them. If you want me to do more videos with guests where they teach me something or where I teach them something, let me know in the comments down below, and see you next time with a new video. Yo ninjas!